This is a silver chart on a weekly basis, and actually last week silver formed a bullish hammer. Now, I'm not going to put a lot of faith in that because I was listening to David Morgan a little bit, kind of briefly, and he was stating that, well, I don't really want to get into too much what he was stating because I'm going to say what I think. I think this bullish hammer is not really going to mean what it normally means. Just in other words, a bullish hammer after a downtrend could mean a bounce. Now, I think we might get a little bit of a bounce, but I think that the final low is not here yet because there's too many problems going on in Europe. There's problems within the banking systems in, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and of course Greece. Greece looks so bad that they look like they might exit the euro for real. And in other words, what's going to happen is there's probably going to be more money printing to solve the problems because it looks like the elections have been stating no more austerity, no more austerity. We're going to go ahead with, trying to pump up the economy, which means money printing. Now, this is the gold chart. Basically, this was the weekly chart back in 2008, basically 2008. We had the high here around March, and then it corrected, went down to a low, and then a lower high, lower low, lower high, and then a lowest low again. And before they finally really started kicking in with the QE, and then it increased. So I think that's going to be the same type of scenario which you're going to see with gold and silver. They're both going to go the same type of pattern. We probably will see gold at the lowest level. Now, I know people have been hearing about, this is the buying opportunity. If you haven't bought silver, now, if you're actually heavily loaded up on silver, well, do what you want. I mean, this is probably going to be about the lowest it's going to be. It might actually go to 25. That's what I'm thinking, 24, 25. But that's going to be kind of a fast dip. Now, I think that this is the absolute final time you're going to be able to get silver at this time, even though it's been stated so many times before. It's been stated back here at the end of December 2011. It's been stated that way also, that this is the buying opportunity of a lifetime at September of 2011, and also when it corrected here back in the beginning of May 2011. But in reality, this is going to be it, because what's going to happen is you're going to start hearing some hints of quantitative easing. And it wasn't like quantitative easing. It was announced these first 2 months of 2011 where silver went up this much. It was because there was an expectation of it. But you're going to start hearing more solid hints of this, and probably it's going to hit reality soon. Quantitative easing is going to hit reality very soon. Now, one guy I listen to a lot is Mark Farber, and I want to explain a little bit about, where I think the price of silver is going to go. He's basically, this guy makes the most sense to me by far. And, some of his doom and gloom predictions are probably accurate, because he talks about, the governments are going to actually probably default, and that's why you don't want to have any of your money that's backed by a government. And, that equities in solid companies might be a pretty good play, because even though they could drop, they're not going to go to zero. As long as the company stays solid, then they'll rebound. But if you have money in government that's backed by government, and government goes broke, you can go to zero. But that's not implying that everything on a piece of paper is going to go to zero. That's implying that some government debt-backed instruments will go to zero. Now, companies, if they're in the actual right industry, like, say, for instance, everybody wants to buy gold because, say, gold became fashionable. Like right now, the middle class doesn't like gold too much, for the most part. It's actually a small niche market. Silver is actually a small niche market. But when gold and silver become fashionable to have, and everybody's talking about it, it's like the thing to do, that's going to create some serious demand on a product. But actually, I'm going to tell you right then, I'm probably going to be selling then. I wish it would hurry up and happen, because I'd like to sell it. And they say, what am I going to take? Fiat cash? Well, you know what? If I actually was holding cash in a large amounts, I would probably be holding physical nickels. But no, I would not just hold fiat cash. I would actually move to another investment class that I think would go up. Actually, nobody really holds fiat cash. If you look at people with even a lot of money, they don't hold tons of cash. You know, they actually will have it invested in different financial ways. In other words, backed by real assets. Even though it's a piece of paper, it's still backed by a real asset. Getting back to Mark Faber, he talks about when there are collapses, though, in governments or something like that, or just to survive, a lot of times they will go to war. And that's the scenario I think that's going to come up. In other words, he says they're not going to fix the underlying problems, and what's going to happen is, they're going to keep printing money to try to stimulate the economy, that type of thing. And it's not going to work because they're not fixing the underlying problems. So what's going to happen is, a lot of times, countries who go to war as basically a survival method. And that's, it's almost like the same pattern that happened from the 1930s into the 1940s. There was a global economic depression basically going on at that time, and it led to war. It's probably going to play out the same way, but we might be going into like a depression that's with inflation. And see, the one thing where you don't know what's going to happen with the price of silver is, say for instance, when everybody in the world starts getting into silver, like it's the thing to have, let's have silver, let's have gold, I have silver, I have gold, everybody's talking about it. And you have a situation where maybe there's basically a breakdown in government or something like that due to like wars and things like that, or breakdown of some infrastructure due to some type of destruction or whatever. These things, gold and silver, are not going to do very good. It's actually going to be food that's going to be most important. So longer range, I think some of the people are actually think they're going to hold gold and silver like as a large part of their money for 10 years. I think that might be foolish. It's probably going to play out where we hit the peak maybe in 2015 or so. It's probably going to take a few years, but it's not going to take like 10 years. 10 years. Actually, we'll probably see a crash in the prices. That's where, people could do what they want, but like I said, once people start thinking it's fashionable, like this woman's wearing gold and silver all over herself as like a makeup, that's when it's time to sell. It's time to sell then. So, but I think the actual peak for silver and gold should not be here for at least 2 or 3 more years, but not 10. It will actually crash. So, I'm quite aware of what's going on with the community and the silver. But when it's going up really high, they're going to be still, no matter how high it goes, they're going to tell you it's going to keep going higher and higher. But I did want to advise people that this actual correction period, this final phase we're going through, this will be the last buying opportunity at this price. In other words, it might go down like very short term. We might see a little bit of a bounce, and then you're going to see that final downturn. I think it's going to go to 24, 25. I know David Morgan was saying something about 26 something possibly, but I think it's actually going to hit a new low. And actually, sometimes when I examine what he says, I don't mind listening to him. He's not somebody that's trying to throw people off. He's giving good advice. But if he actually thought silver was going to go to 24, 25, I know he would. To me, he wouldn't say so. He would kind of say it the way he is right now. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's kind of how I read that. That's kind of how I read that, because it is about the lowest it's going to go, but I think it's going to go a little lower if you could find the stuff. So, but like when everybody in the world thinks silver is fashionable, that's going to tell you the time to get out. But that's when the people that are into the silver and the gold and they're playing the game, they're going to actually be telling everybody in the world, you can't lose, hold on. And guess what? You're going to lose. You're going to lose then. But that's going to be a little ways off. But But the ultimate high for silver is probably not. I don't think it's going to take 10 years. I doubt that very much. I think this cycle is going to be complete in about 3 or 5 years. That's going to be about it. Maybe even 2 years, but I think it's going to be about 3 or 5. But like I said, if you start seeing like triples on something, I don't know, maybe it could go up 6 times, but you know, if you start getting double and triple on something, you'd be very foolish not to sell at least half of it. So that's good advice.